Welcome to the 7th episode in a Legendarium series about the Roman Kingdom. In Part 7, Kings Garbed in Purple, we will talk about Lucius Priscus, the 5th King of Rome. While traveling to the city in a covered wagon, the Etruscan Lucius Priscus and his wife Tanaquil camped near a newly built bridge on the Janiculum Hill. An eagle hovered above them and then dove down, plucking off Priscus's cap. The bird then soared into the sky before placing the cap back on Priscus's head. Tanaquil, herself a famed interpreter of omens, believed this to be a sign that her husband would achieve greatness in Rome. Tanaquil's omen proved correct. Her husband Priscus soon won an audience with King Ansus, who made him a trusted friend and counselor. That may have happened in part because Priscus used his great wealth to help finance Ansus's wars with his neighbors. In time, Ansus even made Priscus the guardian of his children. Sadly, Ansus died not long before his own sons came of age, and according to Livy, Priscus sent the two boys on a hunting expedition while he canvassed for votes in the Roman Senate. With his fame and fortune, he won out over two unproven youths and became the 5th king of Rome. Having taken power, Priscus waged war against the Latins, taking their town of Appiole. In honor of the victory, Priscus started the Ludi Romani, or Roman Games, which included boxing and horse racing. This is strikingly like the sports events practiced by his fellow Etruscans. He marked out a spot for the games in an area that became known as the Circus Maximus. He also built viewing spots for the patricians. Of course, during the late 7th century, the Circus Maximus would have been little more than a cleared meadow surrounded by timber benches so that people could have a good view when watching the games. Priscus ruled over a city fast growing in wealth, and he presented himself in style to his subjects. During a triumph celebrating his victory over the Latins, Priscus entered the city riding a 4-horse chariot at the head of his troops. His garb and insignia included a toga and tunic striped with purple and a crown of precious stones upon his head. He daubed his face in cinnabar, a reddish and toxic lead often used as a cosmetic in imitation of the statue of Jupiter, which also had a cinnabar red face. 12 lictors carried axes wrapped in a bundle of rods. This fasces symbolized the king's power to punish Rome's enemies. Much like the Greek tyrants his father fled, Priscus used wealth gained through war to garb himself in splendor which awed and attracted the masses. After all, their support would prove valuable if the patricians attempted to retire him at sword point, as they did Romulus more than a century ago. If the Roman kings did wear purple, we can take it as another sign of Rome's widening role in the world. As a market town which governed a small statelet, its aristocracy commanded enough wealth to lure in Phoenician traders. For centuries, the purple dye trade centered in the ancient Phoenician city of Tyre, located in modern-day Lebanon. The Phoenicians' Tyrian purple came from a species of sea snail now known as Bolinus brandarius, so rare that it became worth its weight in gold. To harvest it, dye makers cracked open the snail's shell, extracted a purple-producing mucus, and exposed it to sunlight for a precise amount of time. It took as many as 250,000 of these mollusks to yield just 1 ounce of dye, but it created a vibrant and long-lasting shade of purple. Clothes made from the dye became exorbitantly expensive. A pound of purple wool would cost more than most people earned in 1 year. Unsurprisingly, purple cloth became the calling card of the rich and powerful, including the Roman monarchs. It also did not hurt that Tyrian purple resembled the color of clotted blood, a shade that carried divine connotations in the ancient world. Queen Tanaquil interpreted another omen for her husband later in his reign. A slave boy slept in the king's residence when flames suddenly surrounded his head. Instead of dousing him with water, the queen insisted that the slave boy be left untouched until he woke of his own accord. When he did, the flames disappeared. Tanaquil told her husband that the boy, Servius Tullius, would be a light to us in trouble and perplexity, and a protection to our tottering house. From then on, the royal couple raised the slave boy as their own. In time, Servius took Priscus's daughter as his wife. This angered the sons of Ansus. They reasoned that their chances of winning the throne grew greater if Priscus died, so they devised and carried out the king's assassination. Both the sons of Ansus had conspired unsuccessfully against the man who sat on their father's throne before. Loyal to the memory of his old master and king, Priscus always pardoned their crimes against him. In gratitude, Ansus's sons ordered 2 of their men to dress as shepherds, arm themselves with billhooks, and start an argument in the newly built forum. In time, they drew a crowd and the king, who hoped to end the squabble before it drew in others. As Priscus drew near, the 2 murderers ended his political career with a deadly blow to the head. With her husband murdered, Queen Tanaquil devised a plan. She hurried her husband into the royal residence and proclaimed that her mortally wounded husband still lived, but needed time to recover. Meanwhile, Servius would carry on as temporary king, pretending to consult with the dead Priscus on various issues. This plan worked for a while Servius established control of the city. Once Tanaquil became confident of her foster son's position, she ordered lamentations to be sounded from the palace. The people learned that their glorious king died and that Servius, his foster son, would take his place. Servius became the first king of Rome not elected by its leading families, perhaps a sign that Rome's oligarchs grew to resent the monarchy. That wraps things up for this episode of the Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.